Thank you very much on several levels. Thanks, first of all, for the great organization, for the invitation, and for the fact that there are so many people present here. I'd also like to thank the organizers. Contrary to Dr. Hank, I wasn't asked to only prepare a very positive spin for my presentation. I am here to do a few things. First of all, talk a little bit about Estonia and other countries and how it can work and how it works, and also talk a little bit about Germany, how it works there and what might be the issues and how we actually hinder ourselves. So the paper tiger needs to be shredded. I think we all know where the paper tiger is right at the moment. It's in Berlin, in Bonn, in the capitals of the federal states, but also at home. We have it at home, this paper tiger. We can see it in the big players. They are a bit more slow than the small ones, actually, and they all need to be shredded, not because they want it, I mean the paper tigers, but because customers are driving them. For the government, customers would be the citizens. That's the ideal case, and we would have to come back to that. So that when we work in the public sector, that we will not see the public sector as our customer, but the citizens, with whose taxes we can work. And the same is true for the private economy. Now, digitalization or digitization, the first question is always, what is good digitization? And I'm just talking about e-government now. That's the first thing. I've got two basic ideas here. The first thing is it must be good for the users. I, as a citizen, I don't want to be in contact with the government too often. The ideal number of interaction between the government and myself is 0. The government wants something from me, not the other way around. In companies, that's different sometimes. I want to do online shopping once a day, or do online banking, or share my data on Facebook. But I do that voluntarily. I don't do it when the government is involved, because the government wants something from me. So when I, as a user, think about what good digitization is, what I wanted to make it possible that I can save time, money, and excitement. For the government, the equation is different because they have a different view, of course. Every government needs to be clear about one fact, and there are different reasons why the nation, why the country needs to digitize. And that brings me to my first comparison between Estonia and Germany. I would just cheekily say the German government hasn't yet decided why they want to have digitization. Yeah, things might run faster somehow, and some jobs in that huge bureaucratic system could be saved, but then on the other hand, it kills jobs. Now, what is it? Do we want it cheaper, faster, and better, and more convenient, or do we want to have inefficient employees that we have to carry through their working life? We have to decide for a certain direction. I explicitly want to stress here that I do not say that one direction is better than the other one. If, like some Arabian countries, we say, no, we need a huge share of the population working in the public sector to secure wealth for society, then this is a decision which you maybe can afford if you have strong resources. But Germany doesn't have too many resources here. It's not that strong resources. Now, compared to Estonia, Germany, coal and steel were strong topics in Germany once, but they are not nowadays. And everyone who works in the public sector is a loss of added value, because no value is generated by those people, but they're just doing administration work. And Estonians, since they became independent in 1991, so they had regained their independence. The first time was between the First and Second World War. But after that, it was quite clear that there are several challenges. We've got a size of country geographically, which can be compared to Swiss or the Netherlands. But these countries have a few millions of population. In Estonia, we've got 1.3 million spread over the whole country, which means on an average square kilometer, we have 28 people in Estonia, which is not much. Of the 1.3 million people, about half is living in the big cities, Tallinn and Prague. The rest is spread over the country. So if you take the train from Tallinn to Tartu, you won't see much in between. A lot of empty space, very beautiful islands and very beautiful beaches and very beautiful forests, because 50% of the country is covered with forests. And that is a big challenge for our government, of course, because we do not have enough people to work for the public sector, because we feel this loss of efficiency much stronger because there are much less people living there. And so as a post-Soviet country at that time, they didn't even have enough money, so there were quite a lot of challenges. The second thing, which is connected to the post-Soviet history, is corruption. Human is an interim factor between service and user. The more people are in this interim period or interim field, the more beneficiaries we will have in the system. And this is not just something which is inherent to the communist system. We also have it here in a public and free market economy. I could give you one example, and that's the tax returns. And a tax return would be really, really, really easy. Would we need tax consultants? I would say, and maybe there are a few people here who won't like me so much when I say that, but tax consultants is really not necessary. When I really, and I do not want to say we have to do it on one page, but if within 3 minutes for my company, for myself, I could do a tax return, then I would need this whole bureaucratic economic bubble no more, because tax consultants are a loss of efficiency because they do not create anything new. But let's come back to the basics of digitization. What do we need for that? We need 3 very basic things. One is we need a functional, popular electronic ID card. Now, Germany. Who of you here, hold your hand, raise your hand, as an ID card? Who of you have released it, have made it available? Yeah, that's right. And who remembers the PIN code? Ah, well. Last year has used this PIN code more than once. Used it. See? 3 hands, I think. That's all. And that's the problem. In most countries, we've got a hen and egg problem. Government doesn't want to force the citizens to use the e-ID card, and they say, okay, it's on a voluntary basis. Those who want can use it. Those who don't have to do it. We don't even say opt out, so that everyone has it, but you can opt out of it. No, we say opt in. Those who explicitly want it, they can go in. This is how Germany started. What happened? Nothing. Why? Because it's a hen and egg problem. With a new, when the citizen wants to get a new ID card, they are asked, do you want to actually use the e-version? And everyone says, and what for? And everyone says, well, there are not many benefits you get. So it's quite a simple choice for a citizen. No, then I don't do it unless there's a possibility to use it. And many service providers of the authorities and the industry say, why? The government told us we are supposed to develop services for an e-ID card or e-passport, but no one is using it. So it's no use spending a lot of money and resources and personnel to develop services for it. So there are 2 sides who are both not to blame, but the basic hen and egg problem was not solved in the beginning. Estonia actually saw the same when they looked at their neighboring country, Finland. Finland started before Estonia with the e-ID card, but not on an obligatory basis, and the development was quite similar. They didn't get any citizens who used the services, so there were no services because the costs for developing them were not worthwhile. In Estonia, since 2001, it's an obligation to have an e-ID card, not just for citizens, but for everyone who goes into that country for more than 3 months, which means for me as well, because the government knows if I tell the citizens you can say yes or no, no matter what class of the society would say yes or no, I would actually come up with a parallel society, and in 3 to 10 years, this will actually turn against me. So, second point is data exchange. I need to set up a protocol and tell every authority from next year on, you have to exchange data via this portal, of course, in an encrypted way and based on GDPR and so on. But we have to find an agreement how to exchange data between each other, not just for the government, but also for the private economy. So in Estonia, with my e-ID card, I can log on to my online bank if I want to get a loan, and then the bank asks me, may I ask or request your ID card number from Authority 102 to see if Mr. Marcus has committed a crime in the past, or Mr. Marcus says he's got 3 doctor titles. Is that true? And maybe go back to the tax authorities. What does Dr. Marcus earn? Does he have any tax debts and so on? These are things that in Estonia I can get through the so-called extra. That's open source. Any country in the whole world could use that for free, and the government wouldn't earn any money on that. All that will be possible with that, not just for the public, but also for the private sector. And I also need a legal framework, of course. In Estonia, I've got a so-called once-only policy, which means government has obligated itself, has undertaken that one authority can only ask for a certain set of data once and then has to share it with other authorities, which in practice means that I don't have to state my name, my date of birth, my registered address, and so on, time and again, whenever I make an application, but the authorities exchange that within each other, among each other. This results in services like the 3-minute tax return. I log onto my tax portal and everything is collected. Florian worked here and that, donated to foundations there and there, which are also registered online. So Florian gets 10 euros from the Estonian government. That is what we have. So, and in the end, you just have to say, yes, that's right, or no, something's missing. You don't need that, but very often. So on average, it takes 3 minutes. And although it's a voluntary online tax return, 98.7% of all people use this possibility. And that also means, and we have to really get away from some prejudices here. It's older people, people who are not very much educated, other socially weak groups are very much interested in digitalization, because it can be inclusive when it's done properly, and in Germany it isn't. So it's very often defined what we understand as online. When I have a PDF online, okay, then it's okay. Then we don't have to wonder that it doesn't really work, or that doesn't really make sense. What else do we need? We need joint innovation. So first of all, we need openness from the government towards the economy. I worked for the Ministry of Finances in Estonia, and they said for the time of the Estonian chair in the European Union, we would like to allow for shuttles which are driven autonomously. Can we actually do that with the authorities? Yes, of course we can. 2 weeks later, they had the exception permission on the table, and in Tallinn, these shuttles picked up the politicians from the airport and brought them to the hotels and so on. And Germany also uses, German companies also use Estonia as experiment site. The Hamburg Hafen Port bought one port in Estonia in order to do some experiments there. also about openness to the citizen. I have to actually help the citizens where they are and not try to move them where we want them to be. Let's look at the European Parliament elections. Either people have to go to a physical site to do the election, or when they want to have an election by letter, it's a very complicated procedure. In Estonia, since 2005, it was possible to do online elections for country elections, for European elections as well. So the contrary to what we do. And of course, we know that next week we will have the European Parliament's election. But let's go to an interactive journey, see how the online elections work in Estonia. You have to download an application on PC. We use the electronic ID card, which you put into the laptop. And then, sorry.
So I tried it again. I tried it 10 minutes ago. So, well. This is probably not due to the Wi-Fi. No, it was the chip. All right. So here we see it on Estonian, and we are connecting to the server. Please wait, and then we will need to enter our PIN 1. This is for authentication, so that I am the person that I pretend to be. Exactly, you are right. This would be possible. That means I could, I don't know, pay you 50 euros and say, well, can I just use your personal ID data to log in? That is possible, but in Estonia, I can vote as often as I want, and only the last vote is missing. And if I go to physical election, then my physical vote will count. So it is really, really difficult to create fraud here. So I would like to vote for the former CIO of Estonia because he did this. This is my election, so I'm going to give him my vote, and then I'm going to sign this digitally. This is my PIN number 2. So this is, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because cybersecurity is very important. And then it will provide us with a QR code. You can try and scan that. You will need to download a separate app for that. And then you will see that the vote that I cast, that this is that has arrived in that way at the server. Yeah. Okay, and here we see that the vote has been cast. And so with a chip card, with all that in the beginning, with the problems at the beginning, this cost us 2 minutes, just roughly. And so that means we need to be with the customer where they are. So the Estonian state, they have 14 embassies, 40 embassies all over the world, and so then. And so if I'm in Southern America, I would, the next embassy is in Washington, D.C., and so it is really important. Well, and they wouldn't be able to cast votes anyway, and so that's why it is important to be where the citizen is. So I'm going to restart the presentation. Well, here we are again. So focus on the citizen. I would like the services to be created that they're the least complicated for the citizen. That means I can give you my personal example. So 9.5 months ago, our wonderful daughter Emilia was born, and at the same time, good friends in Germany have become parents, and they showed me their printed out forms, so what they have to repeatedly enter there, so lots of bureaucracy. And in Estonia, directly after the birth, we received a message: Florian, all the best to you for the birth of your child. We know that the child has been born. Here is the new code for the baby, and this code is linked to the code of the parents because we are the legal guardians, and so we receive a message. So all the best to you for the birth of your child. We know that this child exists, and we know that all parents have the right to receive a parental allowance, and so on which account should we pay it? There is no application for that anymore, and they tell you that and that amount you will receive, to what account shall we transfer it? And this goes on and on. These are very small triggers with which that work. In this case, this was the birth of the child. And so that we know what kind of legal regulations and what kind of rights there are. We can go on with the topic of education here. This was already talked about in the previous presentation. And in Estonia, we have the following system. So the birth of the child was registered, and I'm getting a notification. We know that your child has born. We know where you live because they also have a digital register. And these are the next schools in your environment. Please select one. We are going to reserve a space in that school in 6 years' time. This means that I do not need to worry where and how I'm going to register my child for the school. The schools do receive the information. Hey, in 6 years' time, we will have 50 more students here, and so we need 2 more classrooms. And also we have 10 biology teachers. From them, 8 will retire. And so on a national scale, if this trend is seen on a national scale, we can start a campaign so that we promote the biology studies for teachers. So on data records, based on data records, with 99% of the countries do have. If we use these kind of data, we can do great things. And these proactive services, a couple of them have been implemented. Well, foundation of a company, this takes 20 minutes. We don't need to talk a lot about that. Then also the income tax is reinvested and so we. And something like marriages, we as a company had a part in this. So, okay, so the registrar wrote us, well, we saw that you that you married and your wife took up your name. Should we already create new ID cards? All that makes sense. And then we can continue that way and can think cross-country. We are in the European Union, whether we like it or not. I am pretty satisfied with that, even though there is potential for new things. Estonia works on the e-prescription, not within the country because they have that since 2010, but abroad. So right now we have 7 countries in Europe where I, with my Estonian ID card, can get into a pharmacy and can get drugs for a prescription made from an Estonian doctor. This works in Poland, in Iceland, in Finland, and so on and so on. So many small and big countries, many poor, many rich countries, there is no excuse for bad digitalization. But how will we get there? So just a brief recommendation from my side, and afterwards we'll have a little time for questions. So the first point would be a debureaucratization. So so the first thing is we need to slim down bureaucracy. And Dr. Leber already said this in the beginning. And he talked about the driver's license. And so this was about the topic of, well, managing dates. And Well, my experience was different. I received a date pretty soon, and then wife went there to get it, and this was also very easy. But then there was still the premarital name of before the marriage, so uh, the old license still had the new name and the new, and then the question is, what kind of data do we have? Who exchanges what with whom? What could be better? Who doesn't exchange anything with anyone? Because the data that are collected, these are the people seem to be very protective about that. So these needs to be this needs to be slimmed down and simplified, and also, well, German system is legendary outside of Germany. If I in 20 after 20 years, if I know after 20 years, I know that I can't be fired at basically at all. How much do I want innovation? Well, I'm just waiting for retirement and just managing the system, and so we do not need to wonder that certain people are interested in these kind of jobs, and then yeah, it's no wonder that they do the way it has always been. So bureaucracy needs to be broken down, needs to be slimmed down, and so rethink. So digitalization does not mean that old processes are just being transferred into the digital realm. No, this is not the digitalization of a paper to a PDF. No, right now we have the chance to uh, improve the insurance system entirely. So we have the possibility to change the taxation system entirely, because we don't need millions of exceptions for communities, and so if we have, well, 90% if we have 25% of income tax, this makes things easier for everyone, but it also makes calculation easier. That means digitalization provides for the possibility of a new start. And then in the beginning, we talked about trust. Trust needs to be won first, and then needs to be kept. So the Estonian state won the trust by always having communicated crisis openly. So there was once a vulnerability in the encryption of ID cards. So this was not used, no data were lost, but I was at the state chancellery back then. We discussed this internally. What is this? What is the extent? What are the impacts? What can we do? And after that, the prime minister had a press conference every day. What we do, what the citizen can do, and that they do not need that don't need to worry. And this was honest. And the result was that a couple of people needed to renew their electronic ID card, and so the citizen knew, well, the government makes mistakes, and you can't expect people to not make mistakes. So if I receive if I receive an update of WhatsApp by my mobile phone, I'm not going to say, well, okay, it never worked correctly. No, they are going to fix a problem that has existed before in order to improve the solution. And so in private economy, I don't have a problem with that. But why do I act like that with the government? Maybe here we need to change our expectations in order for the government does get the feeling that they can communicate openly with us. Otherwise, this won't work. And then this trust needs to be kept. So in Estonia, there's a so-called data tracker. In the state portal, I can see almost without exception what kind of authority has when, for what reasons, accessed what kind of my data record. So let's take Michael Schumacher with his accident back then, and then the public really was interested in what happened, and they really tried that. And someone in the hospital broke down and leaked the data. And then yeah, it took a long time to find out who that was. And in Estonia, we can say that right away, because we can say what nurse or what doctor has accessed what file. And so we see at 305, Dr. XYZ has accessed what kind of medical data of Florian in 1983. And so the privacy is well protected. Yes, the state, the federal government can access data, but they can do that in Germany here. That's true. They can do it in China, they can do it in the US, and they can do it in Estonia. But in the other countries, I don't have the possibility to fight against this. I do not know what is happening to my data. And in Estonia, I know what is happening to my data. That does not mean that every citizen every day looks what the state, what the government does with the data. But everyone who works for the state know that if people only look at that once per month, and I meddled with it, then I have a big problem. And so 10 years ago, we had a doctor in the hospital who looked at the clinical data of his ex-wife in order to see whether she was pregnant from somebody else. And so he lost all his licenses right away, and he was absolutely blamed for all that. And so deeds need to follow words. So if there are infringements of privacy, if these are known, we really need to take action. Otherwise, we'll lead the trust that we worked for so hard. And these are a couple of thoughts about Estonia. Maybe last but not least, in Estonia, we also have the digital signature, which is mandatory. So all public authorities need to accept them. And also, if you want to buy a car or if you want to rent a flat, this can also be done digitally. The digital signature alone, if we ignore all services, saves roughly 2% of the GDP of Estonia per year, because I do not need to have forms that need to be printed out, and I don't need to have 40 people within the same room. And if I am an multinational company, then these kind of problems multiply. And so this is regulated very easily. And so right now we are building up an electronic identity for foreigners who have not yet been to Estonia. This is called e-residency, and with that, many people have founded companies in Estonia, and they're administering it within a few minutes every month. So these are short impressions from Estonia, and also a couple of thoughts concerning Germany. Thank you very much. Now we have a little time for questions.